Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to the News Bulletin at 8, brought to you by number one news provider, Eswatini TV. I am Nondomiso Vilagada alongside Nomakabi Kambule, and here are your top stories. The Minister of Economic Planning says despite noticeable changes in sustainable development, the country's development has been disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the political unrest. The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture says the Kingdom of Eswatini has a high chance of ensuring food security through school gardening projects. And again, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture says due to high temperatures experienced by the country, this year's harvest will be greatly affected. The news. The Minister of Economic Planning, Dr. Tambo Gina, says despite noticeable changes in sustainable development, the country's development has been disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the political unrest. The minister has been speaking during a joint National Steering Committee meeting of the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework.
In 2021, the United Nations Eswatini, in partnership with the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini, through the Ministry of Economic Planning, launched the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework to offer support to Eswatini in addressing sustainable development goals, priorities, and gaps. On Wednesday, the United Nations Eswatini met with the Joint National Steering Committee to review the framework. Addressing the meeting, the Minister of Economic Planning, Dr. Tambo Gina, said in the past 2 years, the country faced challenges which led to the limited progress in the implementation of the cooperation framework.
It also received support towards the preparation of the new development plan, which will guide the planning process from 23 to 28. I am also made aware of the significant progress made in the other result groups and want to commend all of you for the effort and commitment. Despite the highlighted achievements, I am also made aware of the implementation challenges which have limited progress in the implementation of the cooperation framework. My team advises me that COVID-19, tropical cyclone, and the civil unrest have affected progress in a number of ways.
United Nations Eswatini Resident Coordinator George Wachira said, given the shrinking of international resources, the Kingdom of Eswatini needs to focus on the mobilization of local resources and on minimizing economic development disruptions. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza, Eswatini.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Sydney Smelane, says the Kingdom of Eswatini has a chance at ensuring food security through school gardening projects. The PS has been speaking during a garden tools handover ceremony to the Ministry of Education by the Taiwan Africa Vegetable Initiative.
The Ministry of Education and Training has received water tanks and garden tools from the Ministry of Agriculture, donated through the Taiwan Africa Vegetable Initiative, TAVI. The tools will be distributed to 16 schools across the country's 4 regions. The PS at the Ministry of Agriculture, Sydney Smelane, said through such initiatives, the country will be able to achieve food security.
An initiative aimed at encouraging every household, including schools, to produce its own food using locally available resources. And TAVI project proved to be what Eswatini needed in order to complement these ongoing national programs through access of the healthy and affordable traditional vegetables. Ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to learn that the partnership we have with the Ministry of Education and Training is progressing well. And as the Ministry of Agriculture, we look forward to its successful implementation jointly with the schools and other community development partners.
Speaking when receiving the tools, the PS at the Ministry of Education and Training, Bektemba Gama, implored receiving schools to take extra care of these tools.
Implore the receiving schools to make sure they use these tools that have been donated appropriately and guard against, like I said earlier, guard them jealously.
World Vegetable Center Regional Director Dr. Gabriel Rukalema said African countries need to double efforts on water harvesting initiatives to improve vegetable production in Africa. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samgal Suekoza Malkans.
And again, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Sidney Smelane, says due to high temperatures experienced by the country, this year's harvest will be greatly affected. The PS has been speaking during a garden tools handover ceremony to the Ministry of Education by the Africa Vegetable Initiative.
We are looking at the issues of climate change. I've just received a report that some of the maize that we were hoping would be or would yield a huge percentage or contribution towards achieving our targets has been actually destroyed by the heat wave. So honestly speaking, we feel that these projects are actually helping us and assisting us in achieving food security in the country. We want to realize and express our appreciation that these school feeding programs actually do more than what we had anticipated. We were thinking that this is just a school feeding program where, because the children will be at school, then they'll be able to get food. But we have realized that with some of the children, that is the only meal that they will have for the day.
Businesses are expected to ensure environmental protection at all times while conducting their businesses. The small and medium enterprises have been capacitated on environmental social governance by the International Trade Center Organization. The training held at the Hilton Garden Inn will assist them to adhere to stipulated environmental standards.
The International Trade Center facilitated a workshop aimed at empowering small and medium enterprises on environmental social governance, whereby they are being taught about the importance of adhering to environmental quality standards while conducting business in the country.
With the ESG, we're working with our partners, the SMEs that we work with in the country, and then we first assess them to see where they are in terms of the ESG, and then from there, they got some scores to say, in this aspect and this aspect, this is what they scored. And then from there, we then developed a tool or the next steps in which the companies need to take in order for them to go into the next step of ESG.
Partners who are in attendance say this meeting came at the right time. Indeed, they needed to be reminded about adhering to environmental social standard while conducting business.
How do you actually become, as a business, more responsible for anything that is related to how you treat your employees, your stakeholders, the artisans that might work with you? So I think this sort of work is very important to make us all SMEs understand the importance of adding these values into the core of our business and our foundations.
Such a session, I would say, it's an eye-opener because we've got ITC, which is supported with experts, which can always guide and help us to see where we are and where to correct, where there is a need to correct in terms of compliance.
Some of these SMMEs say indeed they needed this meeting the most because they are conducting business and selling their goods outside of the country. Thus, they needed to be reminded about adhering to environmental social issues in order to be at par with other businesses around the world and globally. Reporting, I am Kian Msibi with Smova at the Hilton Garden Inn in Babane.
Neighbors of a certain woman known as Nompumelelo Matsenjwa at Mahlabatsini in the outskirts of Matsapa have raised an alarm to the public following that she has children who are supposed to be in school but they are not at school. According to the neighbors, when they try to intervene, they find that the main problem is that the children do not have birth certificates.
The news crew has been invited to investigate a matter at Mahlabatsini area in Matsapa, whereby there are children who have been noted by neighbors that they do not attend school. Neighbors who talked to the news crew say they have tried engaging with the mother of the children by the name of Nompumelelo Matsenjwa, where she was asked why are the children not going to school, yet their age permits them to go to school. They say the main problem is that all the children do not have birth certificates and she does not want to make means of getting them the certificates. Indeed, the news crew visited her and had a lengthy talk on the matter. She says unfortunately she herself does not have a birth certificate nor an ID. She says she is jobless and does not have money to get them the certificates, not that they are at home on purpose. She says the children's father passed away a couple of years ago and she has been struggling ever since. One of the children is doing grade 4, going for grade 5. Unfortunately, she's owing about 500 emalangeni, thus her reports have been deliberately withheld until the fee has been settled.
Ukukhona kongigonya khona ngiva ubuhlungu nabahlidi bangafunzi nami ngiyafisa ukuthi ngabayafunza njengalala abanye.
We talked to the Director of Social Welfare in the Deputy Prime Minister's office, Nkosi Shongwe, on the matter. Shongwe promised that he will assign officers to visit the family and see how they can be assisted and get the children to go to school as soon as possible. He also promised that they will make means to ensure that they also have the birth certificates. Reporting, I am Kiani Msibu Muva Shongwe, Eswatini.
Following that, the National Agricultural Marketing Board has obtained the ISO 22018 certification. Eswatini National Agricultural Union has challenged farmers to keep up with the standard from production stage.
The ISO 22018 certification obtained by the National Agriculture Marketing Board will improve control over food safety activities and customer statutory and regulatory compliance, among other things. That's what the National Agricultural Union Director Zimamba encourages farmers to improve their food production quality.
We just want to encourage our local farmers to make good use of this opportunity by making sure that they up their game in terms of production, in terms of the quality assurance from as early as production, because this standard also relies on the efforts of the farmer to meet the quality standards from their production.
In a press statement, NAMPOD Chief Executive Officer Pegizo Mazia called upon all farmers to diversify to high-value horticulture commodities for stability, sustainability and profitability in order to emulate the well-established sugarcane industry of Eswatini. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla with Smova Shonge Mazini.
The Ministry of Education and Training will set up a commission of inquiry on its motor vehicle that has been parked at Eswatini High School for over a month. The Ministry's Under-Secretary Constance Vilagati says the motor vehicle was initially reported to be at the Central Transport Administration, CTA.
Eswatini High School night watchman Richard Sihlongonyane says the government car was parked in December last year. He mentioned that the matter was reported to the police.
I reported my police. We report that one now, but bayibuka basho ukuthi imoto yawona wabesefika lo mntu athiwa hamba kakhulu nayo ingala number plate.
The Minister of Education and Training Under-Secretary Constance Vilagati says the ministry is investigating the matter. She says the ministry was informed that the car was being attended to at CTA. She continues to add that upon summoning the driver, he confessed that he lost the keys. She says the driver was on an official duty when the motor vehicle ran out of fuel and he opted to park it at Eswatini High School.
Indlela le yafika ngayo ke umshayeli bekenda nje umsebenzi lo normal. Unfortunately yase iphelelwa ngegasoline. Kwadzingeka ke ukuthi abufune indzawo lethutana ibeke lapha ngoba kusesikolweni la ikhona khona. Ukuthi at least ingato vandalize. Ithina seyisele lapha satholele lift ke. Kwase sekuba nenkinga ke sekuphinze ku misplace lesikhiya sayo. Kungako ngathi seyihleli lichi lapha besizazama nalokuthi ke naye akalikhuluma iqiniso ekucaleni nakwendeka. We had the information ukuthi imoto solo ise-CTA. Kanti kusho ukuthi bekesaba lokusho ukuthi imoto seyolahlekelwe isikhiya. Angeke nje driver naye simiyekele kalula kanjalo. Setapha likomiti lelitazamela kusitholela facts around the car. Mhlawumbe sesekuvile la lasitshela kona but nje ke I think kuyathusa lokuthi vele seyihlile isikhathi lesithe lapha, so angeke siyiyekele malula.
The value of the Isuzu double cab is now estimated 90,000 emalangeni. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla with Vuminkosi Nzinisa Eswatini.
Dear viewers, now take a look at our financial updates. Welcome back. You're still watching Eswatini TV, and for sports news tonight, President of the Eswatini Netball Association, Ndombi Masango, says despite Eswatini missing on this year's Netball World Cup to be held in Cape Town, South Africa, the country's world rankings have improved. Eswatini is now ranked 29th worldwide. Masango says more will be required to ensure that better results keep coming.
The Kingdom of Eswatini has failed to qualify for this year's Netball World Cup to be staged in South Africa, Cape Town City. But the recent released World Cup rankings show an important improvement for Eswatini, where they are ranked number 29 in the world. The association's president, Ndombi Masango, says more activities will be taking place this year to improve the country's rankings.
We managed even to attend the World Cup qualifiers, and even our performance was exceptional, considering that for the past 4 or 5 years the national team has not been active. But when they went to the pitch, you know, the national flag was raised up high. Really, we're so impressed. Even everybody, let me say, were impressed the way we performed, such that we ranked position 29. International qualification, the way to improve them is more action, more activity. So we are looking at ways in which we can improve. We want to invite neighboring countries in preparation for the Africa Cup Championships in July in Uganda.
This year's World Cup in Cape Town, South Africa will begin on 28th of July to the 6th of August. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabisumsonera Mbabane.
Eswatini Referees Association Chairman Jabulani Motsa says the country has programs that seek to capacitate women referees to ensure that they do their job confidently without fear.
There have been some reports in different African countries that some of the female referees get harassed and victimized while officiating football games. Eswatini Referees Association Chairperson Jabulani Motsa says the country has got programs that aim to capacitate women referees to ensure that they do their job confidently without fear or favor. Motsa concluded saying that the same capacitation is also given to men referees to ensure that they also deliver on their work of officiating. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabisumsonera Bawane.
That is all we had for tonight, but before we wrap up, we'll take a quick recap of today's headlines. The Minister of Economic Planning says despite noticeable changes in sustainable development, the country's development has been disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the political unrest. The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture says the Kingdom of Eswatini has a high chance of ensuring food security through school gardening projects. And again, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture says due to high temperatures experienced by the country, this year's harvest will be greatly affected. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin tonight. Up next is the weather forecast for selected towns. Good night, Eswatini.